So before I really start my review of the show, I want to let you guys know that this is kind of a difficult situation to tackle. We've got the people on the left and right that either love the show or hate it, and you've got the oddballs out who are somewhere in between. But anyway, this video is about why I think Sword Art Online is great, and it is my personal favorite anime. I've only watched a good handful of animes, so take my opinion how you like it. And I don't think I needed to state that, but I feel like in this day and age, this is my opinion. If you guys don't like Sword Art Online, that's perfectly fine. Anyway, so I really want to talk about areas where some other creators haven't touched on, and I also want to defend some certain things that others have criticized, and I think they're used to the best of the ability, and I think they're honestly really beautiful to see. And I do want to touch on some things that not many other creators have talked about, like I'm not going to get into this right now, I'll just let the video play out. But anyway, I hope you all will stick to the end. This video was very fun to make because, you know, the information is still very fresh in my head due to just binge watching the first season, second extra edition, and the Ordinal Scale. I'm looking forward to Season 3 coming out in October, and I do intend to make a follow-up video about Season 3 to see my thoughts and opinions on where it could go, and hopefully they won't mess anything up with relationships and character development. Anyway, without further ado, I'll let this video roll, and I hope you all enjoy the video, and if you do, stick around. I got some more videos planned. So while I was going to work on one of my other Versus videos, I decided that I really wanted to talk about Sword Art Online. Being relatively new to anime, and only watching a handful of shows that included ReZero, Blend S, Spirited Away, and Akame ga Kill, and now I guess I can add SAO to the list, I've come to realize that Sword Art Online is my favorite anime thus far. Before I talk about what I really want to talk about, and I really had no idea what I was going into when I was going to start watching this show. Many people and some of my closest friends were trashing it, calling it boring and poorly written. While there are times in the show where there is bad writing and areas of weakness, the show resonated with me on a part where I had no idea an anime could. At certain points, I was locked on the screen with excitement and glee. But where there are areas of strength in the show, there are many times while watching SAO where I rolled my eyes and cringed. Which, many fans and haters will know exactly what I'm talking about. What this show first brings to the table is the realization that the virtual reality is going to be a huge part in this show and in our own future. In 2012, when this show first aired, we had companies that were making and had made virtual reality software to immerse the user into a world where many had thought it would take years to create. While virtual reality software in the world of Sword Art Online probably won't be here for a number of years, this makes the viewers like you and me resonate more with the characters who feel joy and awe towards them when they get their hands on nerve gear. Anyway, while watching SAO, I was taken back by the scale of how the music set the tone for what was going on in different scenes. Even in a death game simulator like SAO, the music could in fact make situations between two characters feel joyful, sweet, and at sometimes scary. But when the music really starts to kick in is during those glorious, well choreographed, and downright epic boss fight scenes. The sheer sound alone can probably pump you up and at least invest you in the battle. And come on, how can you not get hype when you're hearing coffee, soda, and pasta? If you know what I'm talking about. Take away the music in any scene that previously has it, and the atmosphere of what's going on will probably change. The beautiful singing in the OPs and endings really do stand out and set a great tone for the arc that they are used in. My personal favorite being Mother's Rosario, showing Yuki and her sister going through their lives with smiles on their faces and anticipating the arrival of VR. The OP also shows how impactful each member of the Sleeping Knights Guild has on each other, effectively showing how VR games change their lives along with so many others. So, moving forward in my analysis, I wanted to go over each arc and basically where I'm going to talk about the characters, setting, and the overall plot of the arc. So, let's start from the beginning. Our story kicks off with Kirito, everyone's favorite edgelord. And while I did think he was an edgelord until I'd say maybe episode 5, he does bring about that feeling, while he is just this loner who doesn't really want anything to do with anyone else. While you could argue that he doesn't want anything to do with anyone else because he's afraid of opening up to anyone else, which is a big part of his character arc. Kirito, in and of itself, is someone who is afraid to let himself get attached to someone in the beginning of SAO. He's scared that he'll lose people along the way, just like he did with the first guild that he joined, and it is used effectively, and when his character grows throughout the entire series, we can see that he's learned to let himself be attached to other people. And that is really satisfying to see, because having him go solo and I don't think that would work that well if he wasn't around other people. So I'm very happy that Kirito's arc involved him letting himself be attached to other people. So anyway, while in SAO, we learned that he was a beater, meaning he got his hands on the beta before the game actually came out, which allowed him to learn where the best quests were, loot spots, and how to grind XP. With around 2 months of prior knowledge, this could be used as an excuse of why Kirito is so damn overpowered in this game. But, while I could make that excuse, this doesn't really explain why and how he is so good. There are others who were in the beta, so why weren't they good? Why weren't they as good, or if not better? That's really my first problem with Kirito that I caught on onto viewing the anime. While inside SAO, the writers basically make clear from the first couple of episodes that the only people we really should care about at that point are Kirito, Asuna, and perhaps Klein. But it makes me sad that Klein basically got shafted into not even a supporting role in that arc. But while branching off into episodes like The Black Swordsman and Temperature of Heat, we're given interesting female characters that could be used into likable characters, and if given enough screen time, they could really be cool and honestly have interesting plots surrounding them. But they aren't. Not at all. And yes, while looking at the entire SAO timeline up to Ordinal Scale, I do find Lisbeth and Silka interesting and funny characters. While they are good friends with the more developed characters of the show, I just wish the writers were able to balance their screen time with everyone else. And yes, it can be done. And done well, if I might add. Look at Avengers Infinity War. We have a huge cast of heroes that are used effectively to it's beautiful to see how well that movie used all of those characters and then used them well and got enough of screen time to plop them in a movie like that. Anyway, I'm going to be coming back to that when we hit Ordinal Scale. There were many times in SAO where each episode can feel like a breath of fresh air. While the series starts off with a real horror vibe, showing the audience that there are real stakes involved in the story, that anyone can die, it does set up a pretty good opening. Like, holy shit, this is real. And there have been other animes that have been like that, but not to the extent of this. It's also evidenced in episode 3 when Kirito joins a small guild and tragically the guild is wiped out by a small dungeon, which leaves Kirito beaten and resentful of other people, like with what I've talked about. But choosing rather to go into solos with other players allows Kirito to grind XP, but he's by himself. So anyway, the main story, 10,000 players are trapped in SAO, and if they die in the game, they die in real life. This concept, if used well, could develop into something great, and that's one of the reasons why I feel like some people drop the show. One problem that many people say that also somewhat bothered me was that they blow through 2 years in Aincrad in 14 episodes. While at the time I was bummed out about that, I can now say that I appreciate their boldness to step out of SAO so quickly. Because of that, we got Alfheim and GGO, even though it would be interesting to see a retelling of SAO. So, while watching SAO, I realized my sudden connection with both main characters, Kirito and Asuna. With the start of their relationship being built up as two loners who didn't know how to properly connect with anyone else, share a small connection with each other. Kirito and Asuna would disagree and argue about certain things that involve the game, clearing boss rooms and this and that. But their relationship would further develop as Kirito showed Asuna that she could live in SAO without always 100% of the time trying to escape. And, as they grew closer as friends, it was clear that these two cared deeply for each other, showing fear for one another when in battle. Once falling for each other, this was a landmark for me that really sold me on the show. Anime's favorite power couple had finally come together and brought out the best in each other. Kirito even fighting Heathcliff to free Asuna from the guild, so they could take time off to spend with each other. Their relationship kept SAO meaningful and real, showing how meeting people and getting to know someone in the virtual world is just as important as it is in the real world. This established a theme that was presented in the rest of SAO, including with Sinon and Kirito and even Sugu, his little sister. Anyway, when fighting the final boss Heathcliff, it did shock me a little to find out that he was the creator of SAO Kayaba something. When Asuna sacrificed her own life to save Kirito, I was genuinely sad. Their relationship had been built up to be something extremely loving, and I was honestly crushed at that moment. Anyway, this actually, it was a huge hit for me, and when Kirito defeated Heathcliff but died in the process, it was pretty satisfying to see Heathcliff die. And that whole scene after when they talked to Kayaba about forgetting why he did it, and forgetting why he wanted to make a death gain, yeah, I'm sure we all didn't like that part. It would have been interesting to see further development in his character to see why he did it. But they might be saving that for some other time. Anyway, when Kirito apologizes to Asuna about how he failed to send her back to the real world, along with him, is one of the most touching scenes I've seen in an anime. They both tell each other how much they'll miss each other and how much they loved each other. The whole part when they, say each other's real names, I was basically on the floor at that point. The highlight of the season, the highlight of the entire series, but mainly this season, is the love between both characters and how much they mean to each other. And yes, it made me tear up a little when Kirito woke up immediately in the hospital and thought of Asuna. But that whole thing of him getting up and walking, oh my god. You had to ruin it. He was in bed for 2 years. I don't think that gets enough attention, but he literally got up and started walking. Anyway, I do feel that the second half of season 1 is the weakest part in the series. While I do think that it's good, it definitely isn't as bad as everyone thinks it is. To start off, I want to talk about its driving force and what makes this part of the season work for me. And I'm sure you all know what it is. And, because take it out and it would definitely change the story. Asuna and 300 other people who did not make it out of SAO, their consciousness has not returned to the real world and they are still stuck in SAO. Agil, a supporting character from Aincrad, informs Kirito that Asuna might be trapped in Alfheim, a new virtual reality MMORPG, and the main goal is for her friend Kirito to free Asuna and from Alfheim and reunite. It's Kirito's sole mission to free this girl, and I guess save the others? I don't know. I guess his main goal is to save Asuna. It's whatever. Anyway, let's jump right into my main criticism. It's Sugu. I think Mother's Basement, I'll link his video down below because I think that he's a really good commentator and I definitely want to support him. I just feel like he's a really cool anime YouTuber. He summed up my opinion on Sugu, and what he basically said is that, for me personally as well, I don't have a problem with types of medias tackling hard to talk about subject matters like incest and having feelings for your siblings. I did feel uncomfortable sometimes while watching this half of the season. This type of thing could have been handled with more care after Sugu got over. Having Sugu get over her feelings for Kirito would have at least fixed some of the bad elements in this half of the season. Also, that whole side plot with the salamanders fighting the other races, while a little interesting, feels so out of place and is basically an insult to time. Kirito has about a week to free Asuna before she's married. While watching, I was just like, Kirito, man, you gotta go get your girl, dude. Like, what are you doing? So, with that out of the way, my biggest gripe with Alfheim is how it handles Asuna. Asuna in SAO is taken as this badass warrior who really doesn't need any protection. But in this half of the season, I feel like she's underutilized to the extent that sometimes we forget she's even here. If somehow she could be used like trying to free herself earlier on or gaining more information from the person who trapped her, which is the main antagonist, it would provide a more interesting story than having her sit down and moan about Kirito. While it is still nice to see that she still has feelings for him, I would like to see a touch on the villain a little bit. I mean, he's not a bad... He is a bad villain. And to get into the villain, he is just bad. He's so over the top and creepy. And while there have been villains like this that can work, in this case, it really doesn't. And Asuna and the villain really go hand in hand. And, well, okay. And while I want to say that this villain could work, moving forward, I want to talk about, like, the 2 scenes that he's in that really, really makes it hard. Well, actually, it's 1 scene, and I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. It's the 2 sexual assault scenes that happen to Asuna. So I'll start with the first one. It's so over the top and just it's disgusting to look at. But both these scenes are handled very poorly and it's downright ugly to watch. And the main reason these scenes were added was basically to increase shock value. The intent was to horrify the audience, but with what we're left at is a sick feeling of uncomfortableness and regretting watching it. So I'm just going to avoid these scenes from now and move on. Alright, so honestly, how I do feel about the not Gun Gale, sorry, is that it's the weakest part, and I feel like Asuna deserved more of an interesting story around her, and they should have improved the main villain and made him very less creepy, because it's so over the top and just, it's not good. But that is my main gripe with the show. All in all, that whole season is driven for me by, Kirito and Asuna trying to find each other and reunite. That is basically the driving force. There really isn't that much going for it after that. Anyway, getting into what was handled well for me about Gun Gale Online moving on to the second season. It does start off kind of slow, but it does pick up with the introduction of Sinon and the world of GGO. GGO provides a wasteland atmosphere similar to a battle royale, which we're all familiar with at this point. With the introduction to Sinon, it does make me sad that she was underutilized in the later half of the season. I felt she had a lot more potential and could be used to bridge the gap between both games, being Alfheim and GGO. Anyway, one of the strongest parts for me in this season is the connection it had with others that were trapped in SAO. We're given more detail and storylines that explain more about the Laughing Coffin Guild. That I thought was probably one of the coolest parts in SAO, so I'm glad members were able to make a return to GGO. In my mind, I did know that the members probably wouldn't be anyone that we recognized, so when we got the main reveal, it wasn't that jaw-dropping. That said, when Shinkawa, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, but I just did, was shown to be a member of the guild and attacked Sinon, I was taken back, but while at the time it was a bit surprising for me to find out that he was a villain, now looking back on it, it really isn't. And that whole scene where he's basically sexually assaulting her again is... it's not as bad as Asuna's. It's still not easy to look at, though. So, while writing this, I really wanted to talk about some real-world subject matters that are talked about in the show, or shown through some of the characters in the show. While viewing, we learned that Sinon suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder because of an intense ordeal she had when she was younger. This created trauma inside her and feeds on her own emotions, causing her to resent guns in the real world, so she uses GGO to cope with her constant anxiety to help improve her well-being. And I think that's a great way for that to be brought in. It really is mature, but thankfully the writers were able to show how scary and real this is. They're not really sugarcoating it at all, and it feels real. You really do feel for Sinon and care for her when she struggles to accept what she's gone through. And you really do find it very fulfilling when she's able to forgive herself for what she's done, and she's able to see, how she affected so many other lives. So, moving on to Mother's Rosario, we're given yet another real-world situation thrown in the mix. A mysterious player named Zakin is revealed to be the strongest player in Alfheim and challenges anyone to face her. This story arc is personally my favorite due to the fact that it rebuilds Asuna as a character. While she is still my favorite character, even going through Season 1 in the show, she didn't really get much screen time in the first half of the season, and the Caliber arc is just, it's fun. I want to get that out there. It's a fun arc, something that you can just put on in the background, but it's not that important to the actual story. It's mostly just a fun side plot we see with a group of characters just going to defeat a boss. We see Asuna get the spotlight, and it's revealed that she's having problems at home with her mother, and not wanting her to go to the school anymore, and threatening to even take away her virtual reality games. This effectively lays the groundwork to relate to the audience about family drama, and it really does show how Asuna does struggle at home too. Anyway, when Asuna joins Zakan's guild, aka Yuki, Asuna does learn that the members of the guild are struggling from medical issues in the real world and use the game to escape their pain. As Asuna and Yuki begin to grow closer, it is clear that they formed a real-world connection, even taking Yuki to school with Asuna to show her around. Throughout this arc, Asuna has been struggling to talk to her mom about how she feels about what she wants in her own life, and Yuki shows Asuna that she can't run away from how she feels and is able to teach her that she needs to decide to talk to her. This makes it all the more soul-crushing to hear that Yuki's condition has gotten worse. That whole episode when they're saying goodbye to each other and that next to that tree. While as beautiful as everything was in that episode, it was personally one of my favorite episodes in any anime. And while that is my opinion, it's up there with an episode I'm sure you all know. It's a very popular episode in recent anime.
レムがいます。スバル君の言葉なら何だって聞きます。聞きたいんです。
誰にも期待されちゃいない。誰も俺を信じちゃいない。俺は俺が大嫌いだ。
レムはスバル君を愛しています。
Alright, so we're moving on to the ending. So let's talk about Ordinal Scale. The first thing I really want to talk about is how much I really like this movie. And it did come out last year, and wow, this movie really did blow me away for how, like, different it was from the other... it wasn't different per se, but it was somewhat of a breath of fresh air. And the first thing I really noticed while watching the movie was how great this movie looked. Every frame is beautifully created, and it stands out on its own. It stands out on its own. That goes hand in hand when you take the large-scale boss battles in the movie, and you look at that and you're like, wow, that is really, really well done. Once again, the soundtrack is amazing and does sometimes really do steal the show. But what drives this movie home for me is, once again, these two lovebirds. Oh man, while I have stated that their relationship is one of the key components of what makes this show great, in the movie, the romance between Kirito and Asuna is done fantastically. While you could call me a sweaty fanboy who's shipping a 2D relationship, and by God I am, the movie really does ride home that these two care deeply for each other, and evidently, when Asuna's memories are stripped away about SAO and everything that she's done in SAO, she still loves Kirito and stays by his side. So at the end, when Kirito gives Asuna a ring to propose, it really does make it all the more meaningful. And you had me on the ground, crying about how happy and excited I was. Anyway, Ordinal Scale is a good movie, and it provides one of the best villains in the show thus far. He might be on the level as Killmonger from Black Panther. His goal is to erase all the memories of almost every SAO survivor to recreate his dead daughter that he lost in SAO and create an artificial intelligence, Yuna. This could effectively lead to many people's deaths, and you really do feel conflicted, but you do end up wanting to hear this guy out. What would be really so bad if everyone's memories about SAO were deleted? It really does paint a great picture of the moral dilemma. On one hand, you have people like Asuna and Kirito who are defined by their experiences in SAO and who had met there, and you have people who had terrible times living in SAO who were scared the entire time and want their memories gone. One big problem I have with not just the movie, but mostly the entire show, is that I want to cover this now, is that while watching, it's really hard for the writers to balance characters, and it's abundantly clear in this movie when we've got characters like Sugu, who only get maybe around 10 minutes of actual screen time in the movie. And while I do like Sugu, it's just sad to see that we don't get more screen time from characters like Sugu, Klein, Agil, and even Sinon. While yes, the characters who do get screen time are utilized well, it would be nice to see everyone get a good amount of attention in the movie. But moving forward into Season 3, I definitely want to make another video, so I'm not going to get too into it right now, and not into it at all, actually. So I'm going to move on to my closing thoughts. Alright. Alright, so now that we're at the final part of the video, I hope you all enjoyed my... I hope you all enjoyed all of my reasons for giving you why I love SAO so much. And honestly, this show for me was just a huge landmark for me. I loved a lot of it, and like I said before, there are plenty of problems with it. And for anyone who does not like this show, and just, you know, keeping it civil, I guess, and for people who do like it, you know, that's cool. If you don't like it, it's whatever. Move on to something else. But honestly, what really does shine in this show is just how good some elements are used, such as like the love between Kirito and Asuna. You know, it's abundantly clear that these two characters love each other and have strong feelings, and it really does resonate with people who are into that. Because, you know, I could be here and ship, you know, Amelia and Natsuki Subaru, but you know, it's a relationship built up from the ground. It really is, and it starts so early. It starts in episode 10 of season 1, and you're able to build off that. And I love that because, like, you can show where this love story is going, what the problems that will come out of it. And, you know, we've got the end results in Ordinal Scale with, you know, Kirito proposing to Asuna, which in my mind, it's very satisfying to see that connection, all because of the virtual world that they met in. And, you know, getting into some, you know, the virtual world, like, you know, whatever you do in the virtual world, it basically defines who and what you are. Like, even the people that you meet in there are important to you. And, you know, that could resonate with many people, especially me, because someone like me who's, you know, been into video games for a while, it means something to see that, like, you know, what you say or what you do and who you meet is important to that defines you. And it, you know, it's cool to see that, like, you know, you're not the only oddball out, you know. But it's just something that it resonates with you because, you know, it's there. And, you know, and when you have people who are suffering from PTSD and AIDS, you know, it's also there to be like, this has a realistic, you know, voice to show, like, it's not just talking about some fantasy world all the time. There are definitely real world subjects that are brought into this, and that are used well, if I might add. With the family drama between Asuna and her mom, you know, I'm sure plenty of people can sympathize with, you know, either one of those characters because of how difficult the situation is. But in reality, I really do like this show. I think it's a great anime. I love this show. And I thank you all for listening to my reasons, and hopefully I will be making a video about Season 3 when it comes close to it. When Season 3 is right around the corner, very close, probably a month away, I will make another video talking about Season 3, my hopes and expectations. And yeah, if you guys like this, be sure to stick around. My next video will be a versus video, hopefully. Or I might be talking about Gun Gale Online. I do not know. Gun Gale Online Alternative. Because it's shaping up to be a really interesting show. I'm on episode 6. Very good so far. I think I might want to talk about it. Anyway, thank you all. If you like the show, that's awesome. I bet we can have a good time watching Season 3. So this is the reason why I'm defending it. I love a lot of things about it. And yes, there are plenty of things that are very cringeworthy. But the things that are very good are very effective and are used to the best of their abilities. And I'm hoping that Season 3 doesn't ruin it or something. They can only expand on it. Thank you. Have a great day. Peace.